Horatio Nelson had been chasing glory his entire life. On October 21st, 1805, off the coast of Spain, he finally caught it, and it killed him. He knew it might, but his fleet won, completely, decisively, in a way that shaped the next century of world history. That's the version on the column in Trafalgar Square. What the column doesn't show you is what he did in Naples, how many direct orders he refused, and why the historian Robert Southey, who wrote one of the first major biographies of Nelson, said his conduct at Naples required, quote, a severe and unqualified condemnation. By the end of this video, you'll have every angle. The verdict is yours. If you appreciate this type of content, gently tap that like button. Let's dive into it. Nelson didn't come from money or military tradition. His father was a country parson. His mother died when he was 9, and his route into the Royal Navy was a favor from an uncle. What drove him was something he wrote about openly his entire life. In a letter to Lady Hamilton in 1800, he said, "My greatest happiness is to serve my gracious king and country, and I am envious only of glory. For if it be a sin to covet glory, I am the most offending soul alive." Nelson wanted to be remembered, and he knew it. That hunger shaped every decision he made, the good ones and the ones that are still debated today. By his mid-20s, he had his first command. By 1794, at the siege of Calvi in Corsica, shrapnel struck him, and he lost the sight in his right eye. He kept fighting. 3 years later, leading a land assault on Santa Cruz de Tenerife, a musket ball shattered his right arm above the elbow. Eyewitness accounts say he was rowed back to his ship with the arm hanging loose, and when he reached the side of the vessel, he refused help climbing up. "Let me alone," he said, according to his dispatches. "I have yet my legs and one arm. Tell the surgeon to make haste and his instruments. I know I must lose my right arm, so the sooner it's off the better." Within half an hour of the amputation, he was back, issuing orders. The injuries weren't coincidence. They were a direct result of how he fought. From the front, visibly, where his men could see him. His crews followed him because of it. His superiors had more complicated feelings. Because Nelson had a habit of ignoring orders he disagreed with and being proved right. At the Battle of Cape St. Vincent in 1797, he broke formation without permission, boarding not one, but 2 enemy ships. His commander, Admiral Jervis, chose not to formally reprimand him, but wrote privately that Nelson had, quote, contributed very much to the fortune of the day. Nelson's own account of the action spread through the fleet under the nickname Nelson's Patent Bridge for boarding first rates. At the Battle of Copenhagen in 1801, his commander, Admiral Parker, signaled retreat. Nelson held his telescope to his blind eye and reportedly said, "I have only one eye. I have a right to be blind sometimes. I really do not see the signal." He ignored the order and won the battle. He later reflected on this pattern directly, writing in March 1805, "If I had been censured every time I have run my ship, or fleets under my command, into great danger, I should have long ago been out of the service and never in the House of Peers." The pattern held: ignore the order, win the battle, receive the credit, until Naples, where the outcome was different. In 1799, Nelson was in the Mediterranean as the short-lived Parthenopean Republic, a revolutionary pro-French government in Naples, collapsed under royalist pressure. Cardinal Ruffo, commanding the royalist forces, had negotiated a surrender with the Republican rebels that included safe passage. The rebels laid down their arms based on that agreement. Nelson arrived and annulled it. He had the rebels detained on transport ships in the bay. What followed has been debated by historians ever since. According to the historian Lord Acton, more than 100 were executed, over 200 condemned to life imprisonment, and hundreds more exiled or deported. The most prominent victim was Admiral Francesco Caracciolo, commander of the Neapolitan Republican Navy, who was tried aboard a British ship by royalist officers, denied the right to call witnesses in his defense, condemned to death by a vote of 3-2, and hanged the same day. His request to be shot rather than hanged was refused. Robert Southey, writing in his 1813 Life of Nelson, one of the foundational English language accounts, was direct about it. He called Nelson's conduct a severe and unqualified condemnation, and said Caracciolo was brought to trial so quickly that the possibility of proving his defense was not allowed him. Nelson's defenders argue he was operating within a complex coalition command structure, that the armistice Ruffo signed was legally questionable, and that crushing Republican resistance in short order served a genuine strategic purpose. Professor Gerardo Marotta, among more recent historians, describes it simply as a betrayal of promises made. Neither side has fully won that argument. Then came Trafalgar, October 21st, 1805. Nelson's plan was tactically revolutionary and genuinely dangerous. Rather than the standard parallel line engagement, he split his fleet into 2 columns and sailed them perpendicular, straight into the enemy line, cutting through it at 2 points simultaneously. His lead ships would sail into enemy broadsides without being able to fire back. He knew this and planned around it by closing the distance as fast as possible to limit the exposure window. The night before the battle, he wrote in his diary, "May the great God whom I worship grant to my country, and for the benefit of Europe in general, a great and glorious victory." He then added a private prayer for those about to fight. Before engaging, he sent his famous signal through the fleet. England expects that every man will do his duty. He was shot early in the battle, on the deck of HMS Victory, by a French marksman in the rigging of the Redoubtable. The ball entered his left shoulder and lodged in his spine. He was carried below decks. His chaplain, Alexander Scott, who stayed with him until the end, later wrote, "I have not shed a tear for years before the 21st of October, and since, whenever alone, I am quite like a child." Nelson's last recorded words, from multiple witnesses, were, "Thank God I have done my duty." He died knowing his fleet had won. He was 47. The British fleet lost no ships. The combined French and Spanish fleet lost 22 of 33. Napoleon never seriously threatened a naval invasion of Britain again. Nelson died on the deck of the Victory, knowing he'd won. What he left behind was harder to categorize. He was a man who annulled a surrender agreement, presided over executions that his own contemporaries, including one of his earliest biographers, called unjustifiable, and made a habit of disobeying orders that only worked because he was usually right. When he was wrong, people paid for it with their lives. At Naples, they paid for it even when he was winning. But this was also a man who never once asked his sailors to go somewhere he wasn't already standing. Every wound he carried, the eye in Corsica, the arm at Tenerife, came from leading from the front, in the smoke, where his men could see him. He didn't fight for glory alone. He wrote the night before Trafalgar that he prayed God would grant his country a great and glorious victory, and then walked out onto the deck of the Victory in full dress uniform, stars on his chest, visible to every marksman in the French rigging. He knew what that meant. He did it anyway. Horatio Nelson had been chasing glory his entire life. On October 21st, 1805, off the coast of Spain, he finally found it, and he paid the ultimate price. This has been a production of History Recast. If you enjoyed this video, please click the link and check out one of our other stories.